Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 950A, and today's date is April 20th, 2016, and the title of the episode is China is now on course to shift away from the dollar. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Michael Snyder. He is from the Economic Collapse blog. It is now on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, so you can go right over to the channel and view it there, or you can come over to the x22report.com site. You can scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side, you'll see the video there, or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side, you'll see the video there, and you can play it. Let's get right into the Economic Collapse financial news. Now, yesterday, we got the word that Intel was going to lay off people. Now, we reported on this a couple of reports back. We just didn't know the exact number. And we are seeing that corporations right now, because you have to remember, they don't have the sales, they don't have the revenue. They're buying back the stock to push their stocks up. And to buy the stocks, they need to let people go. They need to cut costs. And we're seeing a lot of corporations, they don't have the sales and revenue. So they're going to be letting go a lot of people. Now, Intel has let go 12,000 people, 11% of the entire workforce. And this is a lot of people. And as we move throughout this year, we're going to see other corporations, because we know that their earnings are coming in now. We know that the sales are declining. They're not good at all. And we know at this point they're already in discussion to lay off a lot more people. Because what are we seeing here? Well, we're seeing the slow destruction of the economy. This happened back in 2007. No one wanted to admit to it. It went throughout 2007 into 2008. And until we had the big bang of the stock market coming down, no one really wanted to admit it. But remember, when the market came down, all of a sudden, companies came out of the blue. They closed. A lot of them laid off a lot more people. They used this as an excuse at this point. And I believe as we go throughout this year, we're going to see a lot more layoffs, because corporations, there's no reason to keep these people if there's no sales. There's no revenue coming in like it once was. We're going to see a lot more of these layoffs. And when we have this big bang of the stock market coming down, we're going to see a lot of companies lay off thousands upon thousands of people. It's going to be so much worse than 2008. And once again, I say, where are these people going to find these jobs? Well, they don't exist. They don't exist today. They're not going to exist at that point. But we're starting to see a lot of other things start to fall apart. Now, I see out in the corporate media, and the U.S. government's out there saying, oh, existing home sales rose more than expected. This is incredible in March. But you have to remember, February was a complete disaster. And right now what we're seeing is a small bounce up. I mean, year over year, sales rose to about 1.5%. The housing market, it has gone nowhere. It's stagnant. It's not going anywhere. We're not seeing the growth that we once saw. And when you look at this, we see that the market is not going anywhere whatsoever. Actually, I looked around the country today, and I'm noticing, now, if you look at the Case-Shiller cities, I noticed that they chose certain cities, because we know that Case-Shiller looks at this, to pump it up. Now, all the outlying areas, and this is how it started back in 2008, the outlying areas, houses started to come down in price. Traffic started to dry up. But the cities, again, it's still good. People are still coming. But we see in the luxury market in New York City, things are starting to really decline at this point. And then what happens, it creeps inward. And I'm seeing this outside of all these areas where they say it's booming. I see houses now coming down in prices. Now, when I say coming down in prices, I'm not talking about $2,000, $1,000. I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars. For example, I'm looking at this house in upstate New York, which is about 45 minutes to an hour away from New York City. And the house started a year ago. They put it up for sale. and it was around $650,000. They are now down to $565,000, still on the market. They just dropped it twice in April. And when I start to look around the country and I move south, and then I move Midwest, and I move west, I see the same thing occurring. Now, a lot of people are writing in saying, yes, this is actually happening in my area. There are a lot of homes, but no one is coming. No one is buying. And we see at this point, the corporate media, they're making up some stories that, oh, there's no supply out there. People, they don't see it. Then they come up with another excuse, like Bloomberg says, the strength of jobs has not yet reflected in home sales, but soon it will. Well, no, the jobs are part-time. They manipulated the job market numbers. The people who can't find jobs, they're just not counted. Then they came up with something else, that millennials, they really don't want to own a home. They're more mobile, and they really don't want to be stuck in a house. And this is why no one's really buying at this point. Well, how about that they're coming out of college and they can't find a job? How about they're coming out of college and they have so much student loans that they don't have the ability to pay it back? How about they're living with their parents because the jobs they have, they're part-time? How about all those people that were working at full-time jobs, they've lost their jobs, like the 12,000 people that worked at Intel, and the countless thousands of others that worked at other corporations that are being laid off right now, which we've discussed over and over throughout last year and this year. And they've taken on part-time jobs. How about all those 29,000 manufacturing jobs that were lost, and those people are taking on part-time jobs? So what we're really seeing, and they don't like to say this, is that the economy is slowly imploding on itself, and it is getting worse and worse as time goes on. It's not getting better. I know the corporate media wants you to believe this. I know the government comes out there and produces a lot of statistics. They print up a lot of pretty graphs to show you how their statistics show that manufacturing is growing, retail is growing, unemployment's down to 5%. But when you really look through everything they've been telling us and you see how they manipulate the information, and we discussed this many, many times before, you start to realize that all of this is based on a lie. The government doesn't have to come out and tell us that the economy is doing well. There's no need for it. When the economy is doing well, your neighbors, your family, people around the country, they already know it because they feel comfortable in their jobs. They feel secure. You see retail expanding, housing expanding, businesses. They don't lay off people. They hire people. And this is how you know the economy is truly growing. You don't need the statistical information from the government to tell you this. You can see it. You see strip malls expanding. We saw this prior to 2008. But now we see the opposite happening. And this is how you know the government is lying to you. They lied all the way up to the crash of 2008. Do you think all of a sudden they're going to start telling the truth? Absolutely not. Now, Russia, they are saying that the deal of freezing oil is off the table right now. And they're saying if Saudi Arabia goes ahead and they increase their oil production, Russia is going to do this, and they're going to meet whatever they're producing. And we can see at this point, the United States is working. They have been working with Saudi Arabia to drive the oil prices down because they know that Russia is a huge oil producer and they want to hit them where it hurts because they want a lot of pressure on Russia. They want Russia to do what they want them to do. And Russia is not cooperating. They've stopped them in Syria multiple times. They stopped them in Ukraine by having Crimea vote themselves away. They go to the UN Security Council and say, yes, they have the right to do this. The southeastern people want the same thing. They're always blaming it on Russia, and Russia seems like, not seems, but they're always pushing peace in these areas. And we can see right now they're continually pushing the oil prices down. Now, that's not the only reason they're pushing the oil prices down. They need this to keep business operating in the U.S. because lower oil prices means companies make more profits. Deliveries, production, Everything is cheaper. Do they have to lower prices? No, they can actually raise prices, and they can make a bigger profit. This is how the companies are staying alive right now. The American people with lower oil prices. Do they really have that much extra money? Not when they're losing the jobs like we've been seeing. But it allows them to feel a little bit more comfortable because it doesn't cost as much to fill up your car. You can go further in a week. And they're trying to keep everything propped up for a little while longer because we see what's happening at this point. We see that countries are starting to move away from the dollar. Now, China has been doing this for quite a while. So has Russia. Since the sanctions have been placed on Russia, we see that they started to make their own payment system. China is making their own payment system. China is starting the AIIB banking system. They started the BRIC movement. And they're making a lot of bilateral trade agreements with many, many different countries and setting up clearinghouses. And we see the yuan is slated to be in the basket of SDRs. And we see lately that China has announced their yuan gold fix. And this plan is to maneuver away from the dollar. And they're going to shift to their own currency. And this is a 2-year plan that has been put into motion to move away from the U.S.-centric monetary system. By trading physical gold in renminbi/yuan, China is slowly chipping away at the dominance of the U.S. dollar. Gold, silver, and petroleum are the 3 U.S. dollar-based commodities that China wants most control of. By holding gold and moving away from the U.S. dollar-centric system, we see that China needs less dollars at this point. And this is not a plan that they just thought up. They've been working towards this for many years at this point because they realize, and Russia realizes, and many other countries realize, and this is why we see a lot of countries in Africa moving away from keeping the dollar in reserves and moving towards yuan. And many more countries are jumping on the bandwagon right now. And we can see that things are in full speed ahead. And as time goes on, we're going to see China continually do this. Now, we understand the U.S. is going to try to stop this any way they possibly can. We know that they're trying to push for, war or some type of an event, and they're not going to stop. Remember, the U.S., their debt load is so high at this point that if interest rates actually moved up to the normal rate, this whole system, they would not be able to support it. And this is why we see them trying to bring in more revenue with FATCA, Obamacare, carbon taxes, anything they possibly can think of to bring in more revenue, because they realize as people lose their jobs and they get part-time jobs or they don't get jobs at all, that tax revenue disappears. And this is what we're seeing right now. And we see that Obamacare at this point, it is a complete and utter disaster at this time. Now, we understand that the co-ops, they are imploding on themselves. And the federal health officials, they are refusing to give Congress hundreds of subpoenaed documents on Obamacare's failed co-ops. 12 of the 23 co-ops created in 2011 under Obamacare, which, by the way, cost $2.4 billion, they have now failed. And 8 of the remaining 11, it looks like they're going to be going under this year. But the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they're not handing over the documents. They're not working with the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. They refuse to hand it over. And we see right now that enrollees, they don't know what to do. Because at this point, where do they go? Their claims aren't being paid. They're scrambling to find new health insurance. This is a disaster. And this cost billions of dollars of wasted taxpayer money. Not to mention the website that they paid for that didn't work in the beginning, which was millions and millions of dollars. So once again, this whole thing, not a benefit to the people. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.